Welcome to Ravens Across the Pond, your place for everything Baltimore Ravens. From a fresh, European perspective. Plenty of laughs, plenty of piss-taking, and of course, questionable insights. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Oh, we're back. We're live on X and YouTube tonight, so thank you for joining us. If you're on X, YouTube, drop in the comments, give us a shout, give us a question. A lot to go through tonight. Obviously, we went live yesterday. I think we'd always planned that if what we thought was the inevitable happened, that we were going to try and go live. It was just, it happened so late last night in the UK. Had to try and scramble together. Nick, the British Raven, came to the rescue, managed to get some content out there. So yeah, and you know, the lads join me tonight, and look, before the start, just a bit of a opening monologue on what has happened in the last, just short of 24 hours. Yesterday, the Baltimore Ravens fired John Harbaugh, and I still don't think it is fully sunk in yet. For a lot of us, especially those of us watching from here across the pond, John Harbaugh was the Baltimore Ravens for all of us. He was the one constant through quarterbacks, coordinators, rebuilds that weren't really rebuilds, plenty of heartbreak. He was always there. It's not one of those sackings where I like some of the stuff that I've seen where it's, about time and move on. Yeah, we can think these things, but I think the guys earned, a touch more respect than possibly what he's being shown. Does this one hurt? People could say so, because it is the end of an era that gave us everything: a Super Bowl, stability, relevance, but not forgetting lately a ceiling that the Ravens just couldn't punch through. The Ravens didn't fire John Harbaugh because he failed. They fired him because he stopped pushing them forward, and that is the uncomfortable truth. That's what we'll talk about tonight. I've said it on this show the last couple of weeks. The league keeps evolving, and during that evolving of the league, the Ravens stayed loyal, maybe too loyal. They trusted culture to cover tracks. They trusted history to solve present problems. And eventually, somebody's going to come and cash that bill. This move, it's not about disrespect. It's about timing. It's about Lamar Jackson's prime. It's about a franchise finally admitting that being good enough isn't actually good enough anymore. And as I say, all that, we're not here to dance on anyone's grave tonight. We're here to process a moment where a couple of years ago we probably never really thought this moment would come, but it has. John Harbaugh is gone, and for the first time in a long time, the Ravens are stepping into the unknown. Nathan, Dickie, Oliver, thank you for joining me tonight. Just, I know I got your thoughts last night in the chat. What are your initial reactions to this?
It's the right decision. It was going to hurt either way. We were going to have a pod tonight if they announced that he was staying on and Todd Monken was going to stay, and we'd accuse him of just throwing Zach Moore under the bus. But it's the right call. I think there's a pattern in the NFL where these CEO kind of head coaches have got lifespans, and I think the message, which had been going on for so long, had finally started to probably just lose the focus a bit of what he was really trying to get at. And I think it's probably about time that we freshened things up a bit and went in a bit of a new direction. We've lost so many good years in the last 2-3 seasons of prime Super Bowl windows because Harbaugh's just put his trust in coordinators that weren't good enough to the task. And I think ultimately this season, for better or worse. The exact same thing happened, and there's only so many times you can do that. But let's not forget that this man, well, he's definitely been the head coach the entire time I've supported the Ravens. For most people, I'd imagine, who, apart from the older people who maybe were around for Billick, but he's been the Ravens ever since I supported them. So it's a new process, I think, for a lot of people here. It's a new process, relatively, for some people to not see us in the playoffs. But I think the timing's right. Mad respect to him, Ring of Honor, Baltimore Ravens legend. But I mean, it was ultimately the right time to do it. And I'm just let's press on and see what comes next.
It feels to me somewhat reminiscent of, and on a slightly lower scale, of Belichick leaving Patriots as someone who's been there for so long, so entrenched, do things their way. You have a massive opportunity to rebrand and do what you want. I think we said before, Tom, you mentioned it previously. The Raven, what does that mean anymore? What does that mean anymore? And does it feel like Harbaugh's mission has got stale? So it's time to move. Ultimately, it's time to move on. I think some of us would have moved on 2 years ago, maybe after the AFC title game. Was that a missed opportunity then? I think so. But ultimately, you've got to have massive respect for Harbaugh, what he's done for the organisation. You think in 18 years as a head coach, we've never once really been a laughing stock of the division, and that's something you can really appreciate. And we've always been there or thereabouts, even in some of the worst years. Look at the sort of Ryan Mallett years and stuff like that. There's still felt like there was a plan to go somewhere at some point. So it's just a big opportunity, and like he.
Have you lost them there?
Yeah, I think we just lost the last couple of words to that, but I'm sure it made perfect sense.
Oh yeah, it's lovely. It's just to say, I think you'll see Harbaugh will be snapped up immediately, won't he?
Oh, of course. I mean, you can see it already. He's got like 7 or 8 interviews lined up.
There's only 6 jobs available.
Yeah, but there was also reports that he's being called up by people who currently don't have vacancies open. So that shows how in demand he's going to be. People might consider changing their mind about what they're moving forward with.
I think for me, what I'm sad about here, I think Harbaugh deserved to go out with more dignity. Like he probably deserved to. I'm going to use the term. I'm going to say go out on his own terms. I don't mean that literally, where Harbaugh could stay for as long as he wanted. I think it all happened quite quickly and quite ugly in a way, where Harbaugh was clearly in a room. They was clearly arguing. From the reports we've seen, Harbaugh refused to get rid of Todd Monken, and I admire that loyalty. I think Harbaugh is really good at that, but sometimes that's been his weakness at times as well. The reports that he wasn't allowed to announce his own departure to the staff. I mean, I understand that's quite a common thing. It happens a lot, but that doesn't quite sit right with me. I think in his, we call it what it is. In his sacking, there's reports that the front office were trying to persuade Biscotti to keep him. Yeah, you don't know what to believe, but he probably deserved a bit more dignity in that process. It does feel a little bit like Biscotti made a call and Harbaugh was out the building. Harbaugh was basically took out the building on the first opportunity, and that process doesn't sit right. I think what we should remember as well, there's currently a lot of younger coaches in that building who are probably not really sure about their future right now. And that's the bigger picture, isn't it? When a head coach goes and an organization gets turnover, that affects a lot of people with jobs and hopes and families. So I think that element of it is sad. On the football side of it, I think his message was getting stale. I don't think he was able to get us over the hill as much as I have defended him at times. And uncertainty is not good. And discussion about a coach isn't good. So, we've got an opportunity now for a fresh start. And I think that's really exciting as a fan to see what the next guy is going to do.
Just picking up on a point you said there about admiring his loyalty to Todd Monken. That is possibly the exact reason why John Harbaugh was going into that room with Steve Biscotti yesterday to have a conversation about his future, because he is being blinded by his own loyalty to coordinators. Now, granted, you can say various different things about Todd Monken. I don't proportion much of the blame on Todd Monken. But what I nearly said the Orioles did, what the Ravens have done, have gone. We admire loyalty. We've been loyal to you, John. There was times where, don't forget, there was, you go back a good few years ago, Steve was actually considering about firing Harbaugh after consecutive seasons of missing playoffs. And then you've got to take into account, what would John Harbaugh's legacy look like as a Baltimore Raven if Ray Rice didn't go on 4-29, if Jacoby Jones didn't make that catch at Mile High? What does John Harbaugh's legacy look like then? So loyalty in sports only gets you to a certain distance. I hate romance in sports. There's too much of it, and in regards to, should John have been able to go out on his own terms? Yeah, go out on your own terms as a winner. If the perfect scenario for everybody involved would have been John and the Ravens getting another Lombardi, and que sera, whatever will be, sail off into the distance. The fact that hasn't happened, the fact he's been blinded by his loyalty, and if he's been given an ultimatum, which what we heard last night, I think other news broke on other pods about Harbaugh being fired at the time, but when we went live last night, lucky enough, Nick, with the contacts he's got, gave us some, credible sources that it was an ultimatum. I'll admire him for falling on his sword because that's what he's done, but it doesn't get you anywhere in sport. And I think the Ravens just gone, you've had our loyalty, but he's going a different direction now, because I think if they didn't make the move now, but they've had to make it next year, and then you're another year into Lamar Jackson. And let's face it, Lamar Jackson is the clock. It's not a Super Bowl window. It's the Lamar Jackson window. He's 29. Can you afford to waste another year of Harbaugh? Can you afford to then waste a first year of a potential new head coach coming in? So by the time you get to where you want to be again, you're looking at 3 years' time. Could the Ravens afford to do that? No. Steve Biscotti's made a decision. John's gone. He's gone with an awful lot of respect. He deserves it. But there's an awful lot of John's career that has ridden on luck. As I say, them two plays there, what does John Harbaugh's legacy look like?
Yeah, and I think part of it for me is I looked back at last year's hiring cycle and imagine how fun this Ravens team would be under Ben Johnson. And did it just happen? Has it happened a year too late? Imagine, just what could have been. You look at some of the potential names who we have kind of lined up in the hot seat, and some of them are, relatively exciting. But I think last year, if we'd managed to get Ben Johnson in, this Ravens team would probably be a completely different entity this season. But I think the Harbaugh-Todd Monken dynamic, it became too ride or die, and he was willing to let Zach Orr just, I don't know, by the end of it was hard to tell if any of them might have gone. So I think it was probably still the right thing to do.
Well, I would say, though, and I think this was touched upon, like, he's not going to be short of a job opportunity. And if I'm a team that's kind of in the start of the rebuild, I mean, maybe I'm trying to set a culture and a tone for my organization. John Harbaugh is the perfect guy for that. Like, I think, you could have John Harbaugh for 3 or 4 years and set a real tone to get your organization off on the right foot.
I think he lands at the Giants, and that'd be an interesting dynamic with him putting up with the Smash Brothers. But that's the one that, you know, makes the most sense to me. Or, you know, would he go somewhere, you know, somewhere else? I can't see him going to Vegas. I don't think he'll stay in the North. So it's one of them. And look, this is just me being really harsh here. He is, or was at the time, the highest paid coach in the NFL. Again, that reduces me the amount of sympathy I have for the guy. Not taking away from what he's done. I'll keep repeating that in case people think I'm trying to take that away from him. You can't. His records are the records. He's the winningest coach in franchise history. Super Bowl winner, multiple playoff runs, multiple AFC North championships. Fair play. But you're the highest paid coach in the league. What you've been putting out over the last couple of years, like, where would the Ravens be if it wasn't for Lamar Jackson?
We'd have a different head coach by now.
Yeah. So
Genuinely believe that.
We'd be in a bizarro world where we've gone through 2 of these first-round quarterbacks probably in the last 6 years, and who knows what could have been. The Browns may have actually been good in that timeline.
We've got Shador Sanders and Dion as our offensive coach.
So we will touch over the Pittsburgh Steelers game at some point. As I say, there's plenty to talk about here. A Ravens reality check. Where are the Ravens actually are at the moment? Because you look at how the season finished. Is the win-loss reality totally? Is that reasonable? When you look at everything that's gone on, is that reasonable compared to the preseason expectations where Super Bowl winners? The Ravens are now going to go all the way. They've had multiple playoff failures in championship games and playoff games. They're now going to go and do it. I look at the finishing 8 and 9, and I go, if you'd given me that at 1 and 5, I'd have bit your hand off. Where are the Ravens actually at? Did the Ravens really genuinely believe that they were contenders? Did John Harbaugh genuinely believe they were contenders? There's a clip of John Harbaugh with Steve Biscotti, wanting to win now. And then there's the other clip of John Harbaugh, and he sat there and he's like, anybody who's like, you've got to go all out for a championship doesn't really know. You've got to go through the battles and build a culture. Did they actually believe going into this season that they were contenders? Were they actually in the AFC picture? Or is it as simple as, was it just missed opportunities, close losses, and a couple of self-inflicted wounds?
If we beat the Bills first game, I think we go on a much better trajectory to start the season. I don't think we get anywhere near 1 and 5 really, but it's just hard to tell. What if we all bought, and I think most of us bought into Cooper Rush at the start of the season. That was clearly now a mistake. I think it's the highest paid backup in the league. Bad idea. Why don't we just keep snooping? And I think, if we instead of being 1 and 5, we're looking at something like 4 and 2. At that point, we're going back to business. But ultimately, we are. It is a disappointing season. If you just said at the start of the season, you're going to finish 8 and 9, you just thought, what, was Lamar dead, or is Falele playing center? What's going on?
I genuinely think that this is still a roster that can win it all, providing, not easy to do in today's league, but providing we get a really good edge rusher. Whether that's Mike Green stepping up or somebody new through the draft, or, a bargain basement success. We need to find an edge rusher and we need to find a guard. And I think you find those two things and we're still one of the best rosters in the league. I think we lost it in the trenches this season. We just weren't good enough. We got physically dominated by a lot of teams. You don't win football games doing that, but I think small changes and, a slice of luck that, we don't get a guard in, and then, Ronnie Stanley does his ACL or something, So the luck that you need in today's NFL to stay healthy and a couple of players on the lines, I genuinely think we're good enough to take it to the championship.
Stanley, Madubuike, two incredibly talented players lost. Was the roster too top heavy? Probably. It's not been able to withstand just the insane level of injuries that's happened. I think probably too much of it was still roster dependent, was relying on Lamar to do Lamar Jackson things. So, I mean, the defense just gave up the most yards in franchise history in a season. There's a problem there. So there's problems on the back end. There's problems on the front end.
Any pressure all season.
Well, when you look at the DVOA stats on the Ravens defense, they're actually ranked middle of the league in rushing defense. Pass rush defense. The issue that comes about, and is the roster too top heavy? I wouldn't say so. Injuries on defense, yeah, they obviously play a part, but also, I've written about it this week about why they should move on from Zach Orr. The scheme that he was creating clearly early on in the season was too complicated for the personnel that they had, and when the injuries started dropping and people went out, then the personnel that he then had couldn't do the job that was needed. The fact that I know teams make trades and make acquisitions during the season, but the fact that we were Super Bowl contenders and we've gone after a couple of weeks of the season, shit, how can we free up Kyle Hamilton here? Because obviously the scheme on defense isn't working, the personnel we've got isn't working, and they've had to then go and make a move. That's just a telling point. This John Harbaugh's fell on a sword. Todd Monken doesn't get the blame for me. A lot of it goes on Zach Orr. People will say he's only second year DC, and was the plan for him to get the reps in there and then become the next head coach. Look, regardless of any of that, the romance around Zach Orr being a former Raven and his career being over, because a lot of that is probably what's kept him in a job so long. It wasn't good enough.
I don't think you can't do that to get the reps in when you are right in the middle of a Super Bowl window, and it's his defense that's let us down. He spent the last 2 seasons taking sort of 6 to 8 games to get up to speed with a unit that before he took over was first or second in the league. It's got to fall on him. I suppose it hasn't helped. At points, Marlon Humphrey at points has looked like he's made of like brick. He's just times he cannot turn, cannot run, and no pressure. But I think I said a couple of weeks ago, we talk about him not having the players. Adafe always left us, gone to the Chargers, and he's got 7 or 8 sacks. Is it got to be a scheme thing at that point? Where does it line up with him? And then you talk about Monken and you not having the blame on him. I still think we're no closer really to deciding or finding out who is it that actually says take Derrick Henry out of the game at the end of these games when we're 10 points up with 10 minutes to play. Who's saying that? Harbaugh's saying it's not him. Monken's saying it's not him. So which one of the two is it going to be?
There's just a lack of accountability across the board. I don't think that is just being totally this season. Just back to the defense, when you look at the stats, how poor the defense has been, but there's as I say, on pass rush, the middle of the league in ranking on pass rush. But yeah, they've conceded one. I think they're ranked in the top 4 for the most amount of 20-yard plays passing. So when you look at that and go, the pass rush is there, but you're still giving up 20-yard plays, an awful lot of them on third down. There is a massive void on defense there because the safeties, your corners aren't doing what they need. Marlon Humphrey is now at the point where he needs babysitting by his safety. The scheme didn't work from the start of the season. You dropped to 1-5. You were giving up for an average of 40.8 points a game on defense. Not good enough. John Harbaugh might have saved his job if he'd made a move during the middle of the season and gone, never mind loyalty, you're gone out the door. I'll get a new DC in, or I'll promote an assistant, and maybe the season would have gone the way it still did. But at least there would have been, that might have been an argument for him. Look, things weren't right, and I've made a change, but he wasn't. He was loyal to him, and that's what we were getting served up week in, week out. Yes, at times during the season there was increases in the performance on defense, but when you look at that Steelers game, they'd just been locked down by the Browns the week before, with the laughingstock of the North, the laughingstock of the league, and we turn up and just go on, do what you want.
And I think as well, I know you said you will talk about the Steelers game later, but I think we can add, as I said, Adam Thielen to that list of average to awful wide receivers who've torn us apart this season. It's just, when that's happening, it's just not good enough.
No, Rich, for you on defense, is it a case of the Ravens' defense is no longer feared? Is it as simple as too many missed tackles, busted coverages, soft zones? Is it communication failures, or is it where I'm coming from? It falls on Zach, or it falls on scheme confusion versus the player execution, and is it a lack of in-game adjustments?
It's hard to know, isn't it? Because it's such a technical sport. I think Zach Orr probably knows how to call some good defensive plays when, obviously when they gave him that job, for whatever reason, they loved him. They picked him over two more experienced colleagues. By all accounts, Green Bay were offering him a DC job. So the guy clearly could do it on paper. I don't think we necessarily saw it in games as much as we'd want. I do find it baffling that in his 2 seasons, it kind of took half a season for the team to start clicking a bit more on defense. I don't understand that at all. Players have to take accountability, responsibility. They get a lot of money, and you know what? It's not really on Zach Orr if a player misses a tackle. Like, that suggests that Zach Orr has put that player in the right place to make a tackle, and they just haven't performed. Marlon Humphrey, I think he's just injured, isn't he? But I just think, players have to do fundamentals right. It's one thing if players are 15 yards away from the play and it's because a crazy play's being called. But I don't know. Edge rushers in the NFL should be able to beat a tackle every now and then. We shouldn't have to be blitzing up crazy pressure schemes, sending 6 or 7 at the quarterback because the 4-man rush just doesn't work. And to be honest, that's been a problem since before Zach Orr. And we can maybe think about how the team is being built. But I just think players have to perform. And I don't think they have performed. And so it's probably a bit of both. Zach Orr probably hasn't had the best scheme in the world or hasn't inspired them. But they're also grown men who are professionals. And you can make a one-on-one tackle or you can miss it. And they just miss them.
Is that not also down to coaching as well, though?
I don't know that they get coached that in stuff like that very often, though, are they? Because it's so finely tuned, that they're being coached in the scheme, but hitting has been taken out of a lot of practices now, league rules. We know that in the preseason, the Ravens have made a choice, haven't they, to have a bit of a lighter preseason in an attempt to avoid injuries. Joint practices were cancelled this off-season, which can get a bit spicy. The starters don't play in preseason games. So, maybe that's an organizational philosophy thing that could be looked at, although the first time a starter gets hurt in a preseason game, everyone will be crying, won't they? But I don't know. I think it's 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other.
I mean, just looking at these, I'm just looking through the stats now. The last couple of years on defense. So, just in regards to total defense, 2024 averaging 21.2 points per game on defense. Zach Orr's first year since he stepped up to be a DC from an inside linebackers coach. Gave up 324 yards per game in 2024. 2025, so a year later, only a second year DC. Get that? I'll give you a bit of leeway on that. But you've had 17 games of football and some playoff football to add to your resume as well. So coming into 2020, at the end of 2025, the Ravens' total defense was 23.4 points per game, giving up 348 yards per game on total defense. Now, when you look into the passing defense, this is where I'll give Zach Orr a little bit of credit because it looks like he might have learned something. 2024, 4,154 passing yards on the season. 2025, 3,840. The averages for both of them seasons, respectively, were 244.4 and 225.9 passing yards per game. Only gave up 21. I say only 21 passing touchdowns this year compared to 27 last year. 10 interceptions this year to 12 last year. Where there has been a huge increase, obviously one of the biggest downfalls of the Ravens defense this season is rushing defense, stopping the run. The Ravens could not stop the run. In 2024, 1,361 rushing yards. What I will say to that, and I'll caveat that, this kind of ribbon of Zach Orr, in 2023 under Mike McDonald, they gave up 1,860 yards on the ground. This season, though, it's gone back up to 1,734. It's a 20-point increase on the average, 102.0 rushing yards per game this year compared to 80.1 last year. So you can say at times that, there is a body of work. As I say, yeah, Zach Orr has learned a little bit. But for me, not being able to stop the run and an improvement on passing defense shows that there is a huge issue with the scheme because it shouldn't be like that. If I put everyone to sleep there, sorry.
No, the thing that I struggle with here, and I don't pretend to necessarily be the biggest X's and O's guy in the world. The Ravens kind of pride themselves on having some core elements of their defensive scheme that is common throughout every DC. They kind of developed a bit of a system. Zach Orr was obviously like an internal hire. He should be really familiar with the systems that were being run. I just find the whole episode a little bit baffling, to be honest. Like, why was there such a drop-off to Mike McDonald? And I think there was obviously, we lost some really core players in that off-season. We also lost a lot of staff. And I just wonder if, like, the organization ever fully recovered from, losing those members of staff that had been there a long time. Because it wasn't just the two guys that got DC jobs. They also took staff with them. So I don't know. I mean, it's a really sorry episode. It's a really sorry tale, and I think everyone just needs a fresh start, don't they?
Yeah, I think it's not, and like we said, this is now an opportunity to completely freshen that up. Whether Zach Orr stays or not, I lean towards him probably not staying, but I mean, who can tell what they're going to do? A new head coach will probably want their own staff. I think I'm probably set that Munkin's gone. He's got to be gone. I think based on the fact that Harbaugh was fired because of that. I know, that'd be mad. Yeah, we wanted you gone, but we got rid of Harbaugh instead, so you can stay, mate. Actually, yeah, thanks.
Here's another couple of million.
Oh, can I have some guard play? No. Oh, I'll carry on then. You'll have Daniel Falele and you'll bloody enjoy it.
It'll be ironic when Zach Orr's the only one to survive.
Yeah, when he's head coach next year.
Yeah, I think that'd be it for me. I'd have to put some cement in my boots and jump in the Mersey.
That might clean up the Mersey.
Richard, you don't even know what side of the river you're born on one day to the next. Jesus Christ. They should revoke your citizenship. Somewhere in the world there is someone there who's had the citizenship revoked for less crimes than you've committed.
It's when he waits till the Six Nations when he's wearing his half and half England and Wales rugby shirt.
Like we're gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to do it. I don't want to do it. We're gonna have to. There was a game on Sunday night.
Nope.
And look, I'm proud to say that I think all of us apart from Richard watched it live. The chat was popping off. There was, at times there was plenty of promise around that game. Various things went wrong in that game. It doesn't just fall on one person. As such as a player, when you look at coaching, I will put it on one person. Just how disappointing was that end to a disappointing season?
I mean, as someone that I think as early as week 8 or 9, I was early in on the not being too sure about Tyler Luke bandwagon, and we're looking at a player that had a really bad kickoff, even just before he missed that field goal. He did not look like a man that was ready or able to take that field goal. No surprise that he missed it for me. Objectively, if you're not a fan of either two teams, it was a really fun game to watch, I think. It was very entertaining, back and forth. And I genuinely thought that we were probably fine. I still think we were fine for out of it. There were some really big plays, like Zay had some great catches. Likely finally came through and made a big play. Derek Henry was running all game. Defensively, just again, that's where the problems are. I mean, we said, much to our chagrin, that this was a Steelers wide receiver core that shouldn't be able to do anything against us. And lo and behold, we get bullied and embarrassed by some absolute no-namers who aren't on anyone's fantasy teams. And it just
not got Adam
Thielen. Season. I think I had Adam Thielen maybe 4 years ago.
To be honest,
I mean,
I've watched our defense enough over this season to not have that confidence. And I think I thought Fryermuth, we're never blocking him all day long, and I just don't understand it's the same old story. Or tight ends just get free down the middle against us, and Carver's open.
I mean, just on Adam Thielen, it was a phenomenal pass from Aaron Rodgers. But to me, that sums up Marlon Humphrey. The ball shouldn't have got there. Marlon Humphrey has a lot to answer for me. Just his performances this season. You look at some of the plays towards the end of that game, and he's just stopped and just started waving his hands around, and I'm thinking, the missed tackles. Do you have Marlon Humphrey back next year?
Maybe. I think Wiggins is our clear one now, and I think Awuzie is, he's getting up. I don't know what his contract's part. You probably know more than me about that, Nathan. Whether he's contracted to play for us next year or not, I'm not in the detail on that. But I don't have Awuzie back as possibly our CB2. Marlon said he wanted to play in the slot a lot more, and he's just getting burnt on crossers all season. So I'm not really sure how that works going forward. Was the long-term plan to move into safety? I don't know.
I mean,
That's
look,
what we need more safeties.
again, I've said this before about Marlon Humphrey. He's getting targeted with the first pass of the game, the last pass of the game. Quarterbacks do that when they know you're the weak link, and he's not the weakest link to coin and Robinson. But he is a weak link in that Ravens defense. On the subject of Awuzie, Chris is in the chat. Chris, find out for us, mate, and let us know Awuzie's contract situation. Drop it in the comments. Now you're the resident cap and contract expert for Ravens across the pond.
Cap across the pond.
Hand-in free agent, I believe.
Easy. I mean,
Didn't ask you, Richard.
Humphrey's contract has got, like, I don't know whether it's got 1 or 2 years left, but it's also got it's got 2 other void years on, so the money's already being spread. So I'm not even sure if there's much benefit to getting rid of him. I guess you could spread the money across 2 more of those void years again. I think his cap hit is like in the 20s.
I suppose you can charitably say he's got a broken hand, hasn't he? And I don't know if any of you have ever broken your hand. Trying to run with a broken hand does hurt, and he's out there playing quite physical. And I think towards the end of the season, it looked like a man who was hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes out and says he had other injuries.
I think as well.
Yeah, but it's always the way. It's always the way, though, isn't it? Like boxers who get beat and they go, "I don't want to say anything in the build up to the fight." But now I've been beaten. I came in and I had my leg removed last week. Like, no, you got beat because on the night you weren't good enough. On the season, Marlon Humphrey has not been good enough. The scheme has not been good enough.
I think that's really harsh. I think Marlon Humphrey, I think Ollie makes a really good point. Broken hand, like, what is Marlon Humphrey's thing? Like, going back to his draft, physical cornerback, right? He's sometimes drawn past interference, through being a physical player. And I think if you take away that strength, maybe he's not hand fighting with the wide receivers on the line so much. And we've seen him get burned a couple of times. Marlon Humphrey, solid cornerback 2 in the league. You know what? I think it's the passing of the torch. We drafted Wiggins, younger. Wiggins is really coming into his own if we ignore the Green Bay game. You could do a lot worse than Marlon Humphrey. And you know what? Is his contract gonna look like it's overpaying him next year? Probably will. I think we're stuck with that contract. I think Nathan makes a really good point. But he's worth more on the team than he is off the team and incurring all of that dead money.
If you make it a post-June 1st cut, you can save 19 of the 26 mil this year. But you do then, I think, get 3 or 4 mil of dead money for every year for the next 3 seasons afterwards. So if we need the money, I'd keep the 19 mil and use it elsewhere for this season, because 3 or 4 mil in dead money in 2028 is not going to matter.
But then I suppose we say this season, who is our CB4? And they become our CB3.
Where are you getting your cornerback from? I think Marlon Humphrey has 1 more year on the team, and it's a bit of a prove it year. Was last year a blip, or are you generally getting a little bit cooked? So yeah, I think Marlon's going to be on this team. I'd be really shocked if he wasn't.
Lamar Jackson, throughout his career, and especially this season, he's had his critics about it. Is he clutch enough to, a lot of people are putting previous playoff defeats and championship game defeats on Lamar, but look, let's face it, Lamar didn't drop a catch against the Bills last year. Lamar didn't fumble the ball against the Chiefs. Various things have constantly gone against Lamar when he has put the team on his back time and time again, took them down field, put them in a position to win games week in, week out when he's been fit. And time again, the team lets him down. Lamar Jackson, in that, I didn't think he had a particularly bad first half, but that second half and that fourth quarter, he was phenomenal. The two 50-yard plus passing touchdowns, the ball to as I likely. I mean, likely has made a play there just to get up the high to get that ball in. The season isn't on Lamar, is it?
Two things about Lamar Jackson. First of all, I know you're watching. Happy birthday. It's Lamar
Happy
Jackson's
birthday, Lamar.
I know you're watching. Feel better. I hope you're, at a food truck somewhere and no videos come out about you again tonight. The second thing, Lamar Jackson only throws the weirdest interceptions. I don't even understand some of the plays we get ourselves into. But yeah, he was not at fault. The Ravens offense was actually maybe the most complete I've seen it in that game. The Steelers defense is still pretty good. So nothing on Lamar. I don't think, he's missed time, but players always miss time. It's up to everyone else to make sure you don't end up in a 1-6 hole once you get back. And I think he's done everything he could in his power. There was report, he's been on the injury list basically every week since he's been back. He's been playing through something. He's been playing well for someone that's so banged up. I mean, Jesus. Could he have done any more? I don't think so. Could the Ravens defense have done anything? Yes.
Yeah, something would have been good. I think even before he went off injured early on in the season, I think he's injured then anyway. He was trying to play injured before Cooper Rush came in. He's come back early because the season's on the line. And I think we could all see at the point he couldn't step into throws. He couldn't run. He's so injured. He shouldn't have been out there. Any other season, he wouldn't have been out there. If we'd have been 6-1 at that point instead of 1-6 or whatever, he wouldn't have been out there. We might have had an extra game off, but I don't know how much of it is this around. Again, is it linked to Todd Monken? Is it linked to us putting him in situations where he has to throw the ball when he shouldn't be? There we go. As the fucko says, it's got to be something to do. Could it be to do with a relationship with Monken? But Lamar is Lamar. He's pretty much a 3-time MVP. I don't think this season's on him. This season is on, for me, coaching. Lamar didn't drop some easy catches. Lamar didn't fumble it for a change. Didn't fumble it 100 times this season, which is something that seems to have come out of his game over the past couple of years. What more? If he puts us into a 2-score lead with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I don't think it's on him if we lose.
Yeah, perfectly sums up kind of where we've been all year. There's only so much one man can do to keep you in games and keep your season alive. And if you really need to know where the focus needs to be on in the off season, it's keeping the man bloody alive, give him a line, and just have a defense that actually plays a defense which is expected of a team that is in Baltimore. And because we have higher standards of what we expect NFL defenses to be like when we've watched the Ravens for as long as we have. But it's just middle of the pack for a Ravens defense isn't good enough.
Rich, Lamar?
Yeah, it's not on Lamar, is it? I think we have discussed there are times when Lamar tries to do a bit too much, play a little bit hero ball, and that can lead to some catastrophic plays. But realistically, I think there was a fundamental problem with the way the team was built. I think that we had 2 guards playing below league average, which meant that we didn't have the effective run game that we're used to. The offense was put in a lot of kind of 3rd and long situations as a result of that. I just don't think you win football games when you don't win on the lines. I'd fully expect Lamar Jackson to play at a very high level again next year, and hopefully everything around him will work.
I say Lamar in that fourth quarter, and that couple of drives to get us back in the game. Obviously, got us into a position to potentially win the game. The last kick of the game, I did predict on a couple of pods I'd been on this week. I've been doing the rounds, getting the word out about us, that I thought it was going to come down to a field goal, and I had Tyler Loop kicking a field goal from 50 to win the game.
Wrong.
Obviously, yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
Spoilers, Rich. Come on.
Fucking knobhead.
Yeah. Dan's not watched the game yet.
I know. Yeah. Josh is still watching week one. Look, it wasn't to be. I've listened to a lot of and watched a lot of Ravens content since Sunday. There's been some stuff out there about it. Kind of felt like it was always going to be that way, like it was just destined that Luke was going to miss that field goal. And look, before we get onto that field goal, the one kind of question that has been doing the rounds in our chat and on socials was there enough time? And if you were the OC, if you were Harbaugh, would you have given Derek Henry the ball to try and get a couple of more yards and then take the field goal?
I never understand the kneeling before a field goal thing anyway. It's always thrown me a bit through. I'd not say threw me for a loop, but I don't want to sully the name of our rookie kicker.
Well, if
they've got a preferred side they want to kick from, haven't they? So that's it. But
yeah, but Derek Henry's not going to fumble the ball. Like if you want to try.
Nathan, where have you been the last 3 weeks? What games have you watched?
Yeah,
bloody idiot.
I mean, like we'll tolerate your fantasy stuff, but coming out with shite like Derek Henry is never going to fumble the ball in that situation is. I mean, it's grounds. It's grounds for a committee closed meeting to decide whether you can stay or not. That's just abhorrent what you just come out with. Anyway, personally, when you look at it, the emotion of the game, I was firmly, at the side, leaning towards give it to Derek Henry, get another 5-6 yards. He's been running them down. But then the argument comes in, but he hasn't seen much of the ball in the second half. And then it's effectively a chip shot for the kicker. Tyler Loop hasn't missed one from inside 50 this year, field goal. So all the odds and stats, it's a stat-heavy sport. The amount of analysis around the sport go, he makes that field goal 99 times out of 100. Unfortunately, it went that far right. The ball was kind of resembling Tommy Robinson by the time it landed in the stands.
Didn't even hit the back netting. That's when you know you've hit a bad kick.
Look, Tyler Loop, he hasn't been without his critics this season. I think he's got the most penalties on kickoffs. That's something that obviously needs to work on. I don't think special teams at all was great this year. I think the only person on special teams that can hold his head up high is Nick Moore. I
think Jordan Stouts.
Jordan Stouts was there. Yeah. All right, apologies. Get my head back.
Yeah, shut up, Tom.
We're going to have a closed committee meeting about that.
Yeah, there is a good new special teams.
Sorry, Nathan's just left the show.
There is a new special teams coach who could be available. John Harbaugh is a special teams coach, so we could get him in to coach everyone. Ultimately, the season, if your season comes down to your rookie kicker having to make a kick from 44 yards in a stadium that there are people that miss kicks. Boswell, I think it was tipped, but he did miss just before. That's not good management of your season, is it? There's so many other things that we could do at that point that it's not on loop as much as we're used to Justin Tucker just smashing them over, and I know Dean says he's signed for everyone in the AFC by now, but it's gonna happen. Kickers miss, don't they? Wankers.
Go on, Rich. I was going to ask you a question there before you jumped in on me again.
Sorry, I was going to answer the Tyler Loop question, but I'm here for a different one. I'm here.
No, go on.
All I was going to say,
Peter Griffin.
I don't think I would have, to be honest. I think Tyler.
I'm a contrarian.
I think if he's just going to miss 1 or 2 yards, probably don't make much difference. Tyler Loop said that he caught it thin. He knew he got a bad contact on the ball. Don't think it goes in if the field goal is 3 yards closer to the post.
No, you are. No, I think you are right.
Makes it easier.
Less pressure, though, Rich. I know you are an elite sportsman, Rich, so you do know all about this.
But does it go the other way? Because you should be expected to hit, so therefore it's more pressure if you miss.
Yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line, we're all in agreement, and everybody is, that the kick should have been made. Can't change that now. It's gone, done and dusted. How does Tyler Loop recover from this?
Sports psychologist, go to Hawaii, sort yourself out. It's just.
Well, he must be feeling even worse now. He's just cost the head coach's job. Well,
unless he didn't like John Harbaugh, then I'm sure he's pretty chill right now. I mean, he came out on the podium afterwards with Moore and Stout, who were beside him, and said that this was one of the best years of his life and career, and he felt bad for it, but he wasn't going to let him. And I think he's saying all the right things. And as a drafted kicker, you do get a lot of a longer leash because there's just, I think there's more expectation that they need to do a bit better. And I think if he was an undrafted kicker, who'd had some of the issues he's had.
So a shorter leash then?
What did I say?
Longer.
Exactly.
Richard, you're a leash expert.
Yeah, I mean, shorter leash is probably better than longer ones. They don't get.
And
if he was on a shorter leash, would he have made the kick?
Less movement.
Nice.
I will say though, on the Tyler Loop thing, and you've seen the stuff on social media. I think people are annoyed about these things. But if you are sending private messages to Tyler Loop and his girlfriend, you are a fucking moron.
Oh yeah, brain dead.
That's just like, what the fuck is wrong with some people?
I mean, I've done conversations in your own chats. You don't need to be going out and giving people, direct abuse. Especially a young kid like that who's come into the league. And well, I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Tyler Loop. As I say, the penalties on kickoffs and all that. That's something that he'll work on. But I think he'll bounce back strong next year. They're gonna have to get around him.
I think it's one of those things, especially with a rookie kicker. How much is he learning and coaching in the summer? You've just been drafted. It's all a real precise sport. You're super excited. How much of it you actually taken in? The second off, I think I have read lots of players saying the second off season is when you take a lot more in terms of being coachable, because you're there now and you understand what you're doing. I'm not really worried about him going forward. Might have a different next October. Might have a different take on it when I messaged him on Instagram. But but as long as he doesn't send the screenshots to anyone, I think I'll be all right. So I'm not worried about Tyler Loop anymore.
Look, before we finish off and discuss what's next for the Ravens, Henrietta via WhatsApp has sent us in a question. What were the 3 things that sank John Harbaugh, aside from not running Henry and late season, off season failure in the past couple of years? Am I okay to start on this one, and then you can have your say?
You usually do, Tom.
Why
change? Yeah. Fairman Knobheads. I firmly believe that it wasn't just this season. I think this season was the iceberg that sank the ship. And maybe going along that line of punnage, John Harbaugh thought he was the Titanic, he was unsinkable because things hadn't changed for a considerable amount of time. I don't think he should have been offered the contract in March. Don't think he should have got an extension in 2021 or whenever it was. I think it had gone stale. I think his message had gone stale. I think the edge had gone. Clearly now he had lost the locker room. A few players had come out on Instagram and put a few things out there, but Lamar Jackson's first post since Lamar Jackson's firing was just pictures of himself this season. When Lamar Jackson was asked in his post-match media duties about Harbaugh and running it back next year, I think the fact he kind of just answered, I'm just trying to get my head around this situation now. I don't want to talk about that, was a telltale sign, because if you really wanted them there, regardless of what you've just been through in that situation, you'd say, yeah, look, let's run it back next year. I've got full belief in John. I think the fact that he chose not to answer that, and in fact used the same reply he used for a previous question to indeed answer it that way, was a telltale sign about where Lamar and his relationship was with John Harbaugh. I also think the press release that came out from Mike Preston that we absolutely tore apart, and everybody did tear apart, about Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh's relationship, I think that now maybe has a bit more skin on the bones than it did originally. Meat on the bone, sorry. And then I think...
Are you going to send?
I think you should... No, I'm a fuck. Look, you're right. If you write articles, you've got to take the brunt of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm learning that this week. Anyone from the Baltimore Sun listening, if you want an overseas correspondent, I'm your man. And I think ultimately his loyalty was the reason why he's lost his job. He's been too loyal down the years to coordinators when there should have been changes, and yeah, it just never got over the line. And you look at that 2012 season. I mentioned at the start of the show, Ray Rice's rush on 4-29, Jacoby Jones's mile high miracle. If he doesn't have them, he doesn't have a legacy. That may be harsh, but that's the truth.
When you're a CEO head coach, there are basically only three things you have to kind of do. You've got to keep the messaging fresh and on point. You've got to make sure your coordinators are doing their jobs properly, and you've got to be able to throw challenge flags correctly. John Harbaugh in the last couple of years has proven an inability to do all three. His challenging mid-game is horrendous. He doesn't call plays, and his coordinators have let him down. But that's on him, because he's backed these guys over and over again, and the messaging has got stale. So, as a CEO head coach, those are essentially the three things you need to do to keep everyone on board with your with what you're selling. And I think all of those things have just gone to pot. People were no longer buying it. He didn't have the buy-in across the board, whether it was just Lamar or whether Lamar's issue was just Todd Monken or as a combination effort. But yeah, I think we need to move on from CEO head coaches. If you're not calling one side of the ball, then what more are you actually bringing to the table?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything further to say to that. The main thing is really the messaging has got stale, and it's one of those, whilst you're winning, and I think there has been rumblings over the past 2 to 3 years that people haven't been happy with Harbaugh as their coach, their leader, but we've been winning the AFC North easily, and it doesn't really matter at that point. And then it does become a bit of a pile-on, doesn't it? Once you start losing and people aren't really buying into what you're saying, and once you've heard the same thing over and over again, it just loses all meaning, doesn't it? And it's just time to go for him. I don't think there's anything more to it than that. It's not an acrimonious split in my mind. It's just it's run its course and both onto pastures new. Thanks, Rich.
Cheers, Rich. What were you getting distracted by there? Then?
I didn't realise Rich was on the show. I've just realised his face has been covered by much more interesting points.
Probably.
I thought you were just staring at. I thought he was reading it.
Probably the view is we wouldn't want to get an 18 warning on the show.
Keep your top on, Rich, please. Yeah, I just we just have to think about the good times from John and move on. And when he beats us in the AFC conference with the Browns in 2 years' time, be annoyed then.
Look, to finish off, I think the question on pretty much everybody's lips is, what's next for the Ravens? New head coach, undoubtedly a new OC, a new DC. There's an awful lot of work to do in the off season as well to address various issues. There's been some names linked tonight with the job, or well, at least for requested interviews. I mean, the dream scenario for me is go and get a defensive minded coach, and get a top end OC. I'd love to see Brian Flores, as a head coach again. I think he'd be phenomenal. I think he'd bring some form of a Ravens defense back. I don't want to. We've said, what is a Ravens defense? I think the Ravens defense that we were used to watching the Ravens years ago and during that era, that's gone. And I don't think it can come back because the game has changed. But I think he can bring back a kind of new era of Ravens defense and kind of set the standard for whoever comes next. In regards to off field, I know there is players on field. I know there is issues on offense. Defense needs an awful lot of work. I want them to be aggressive. I want them to go after the guys that need best in class. What you can afford, obviously, cap restrictions, and there's that issue to sort around Lamar Jackson, which I think will just be a formality now. Obviously, Harbaugh's gone. I'm looking at go and get a no excuses edge rusher. I want a reliable outside corner, one that doesn't need babysitting. A vile interior defensive lineman, and a legit second linebacker. I think somebody. I don't think if you get a legit second linebacker, it doesn't need to be a star, but it just needs to be somebody that helps Roquan Smith out. Roquan Smith, that probably the last 2 years, people would say, he hasn't been the Roquan from 3-4 years ago, and that's granted. The performance numbers he's put out there haven't been. But I don't think he's had the help. Roquan Smith shouldn't have to be everywhere at once. I think if you go and get a legit second linebacker, strong tackler who's comfortable in zone, you'll see the best of Roquan Smith.
I'm glad you're not asking for too much, Tom. Only half the defense being turned over.
Yeah, Tom, there is salary cap, don't you?
3 fucking players.
I just want 3, top 3 performers at their position at the expensive positions. And that's it. What more do you want?
I said best in class on what you can afford. I understand there's restrictions, but go and get the best in class on what you can afford. Don't go and get a couple of late round pick guys that you think, we can nurture these, and maybe in a couple of years they'll come good. You're in the window of win now. So
I think J.R. Alexander might be available. That's the sort of thing I don't want to see, isn't it? It's just, in terms of coaching, I'm somewhat minded to agree with you that I would look for a strong DC kind of guy. Are we looking at Flores? Would probably be my favorite. I think we look at maybe Jesse Minter below that, but is he strong enough to run the organization? Who knows? I think my only concern is, I think I would also quite like to have maybe Clint Kubiak at head coach. If you look at what he's done in Seattle, I think he went over there and he said he was going to bring in his own run scheme, and he's brought in his own run scheme. You got Charbonnet and Walker now talks as actual legitimate running backs, whereas they weren't really the year before, despite I think Nathan's got both of them in fantasy and they were crap last year. So now they're talked about as serious contenders, and you can run action off of that. Could we go there? I suppose. Then, if you're looking at where we go for an OC, then if you get a strong DC, do we look at Mike McDaniel or someone like that? I think you spoke about Mike LaFleur. Would he come across as an OC? Probably not. But then the only issue I have with something like that is where we're relatively safe with Monken at the moment in terms that no one's coming to poach him. I wouldn't want us. You get to the point where we have someone like Mike McDaniel, some other hotshot OC comes in, performs really well for a year, 2 years, and then fucks off somewhere. Are we back to square one again? What's EDC doing to put in sort of a progression, or following that? Where do we go from there? But we could just get Stefanski in.
That would be the funniest timeline. I don't even care.
And then Harbaugh goes to the Rhines.
Yeah, and obviously we do care if it works, but I think it would just be funnier for him to just walk into the Ravens and pull off like a 13-win season and just stick it to the Browns and the terrible ownership and management in general.
I don't know that I want anyone connected to the Browns walking into the organisation, to be honest. Like, we can stay away from that failure.
Well, I think if Stefanski comes across, he'll bring the DC across, Jeff Schwartz as well. So, do you want the whole Browns coaching setup there? But I'd say been quite good though, so hasn't it? Yeah.
I'd take Stefanski as your coordinator without a shadow of a doubt. I think he's just going to be too hot property for head coach.
I don't think you get him as a coordinator.
Yeah. What are you thinking then? I think Dickie's obviously on a dating app there or something because he's laughing away to himself and
share with the rest of the Richard.
You want to know?
He hasn't denied it, though, has he? He just smiled.
Richard, it's your own time you're wasting.
He's googling the names of available coaches, probably.
I'm going home on Saturday, and my mum just messaged to ask, did I want the spicy pineapple dish for tea, which she can't get it right. It's like
depends if you've got a date the next day, I suppose.
Pineapple, but that made me laugh.
Oh, it's a good job we're not live and we can cut this.
Yeah,
everyone wants to know. Everyone wants to know.
I think
nobody wants to know about your spicy pineapple.
Were you about to ask me what head coach I want for the Ravens before?
No. We've moved on now, Nathan. Sorry.
No. Obviously, I don't know how bad John Harbaugh feels, and then whether he relays this information to Jim Harbaugh. But Jesse Minter has done an incredible job coaching the Chargers defense up. And if you want to go for a defensive-minded coach alongside your Anthony Weavers or potentially bigger names, then I think he's someone that might also be someone to really strongly look at.
It's my understanding, though, isn't it, that they can only block interviews if it's a sideways move. I didn't think they were allowed to block interviews.
They can't block him, but if Jim Harbaugh's in his ear, then he might,
just anything to get away from Jim.
Hey, you're Jim Harbaugh's biggest fan. I don't know what you're suddenly piping on about with this.
You don't know what went down on that night with the fantasy night with the pints.
It sounds like the old Gavin and Stacey fishing trip all over again.
But personally, I don't want a defensive-minded head coach. I want someone who's going to come in, call the offense. And there's sadly not a lot of. There's Clint Kubiak. Completely wild choice would be Kingsbury, who's just just left the Commanders to explore.
Not,
it would be fun. He's done well with Jaden Daniels.
I mentioned earlier in the chat about Cliff. I wouldn't touch him with a shitty stick, and I've touched plenty of things with less shittier sticks.
When Jaden Daniels came back from injury, his first play call that Cliff Kingsbury called for him was a QB draw up the middle into their defensive tackles, and that's not the sort of offensive genius I want looking after Lamar and his fragile little ankles.
And he also failed trying to run an offense with Kyler Murray, so
I'm not quite sure that's what him and Lamar were up all night on their computer games, weren't they? So
maybe he might like Cliff Kingsbury, you never know. But yeah, there's not going to be a massive amount unless we go coordinator poaching. I don't really know of offensive-minded coaches. So
There's really not many about at the moment.
So yeah, a Minter or a Weaver, but then there's no like hot shot coach, like a wide receivers coach who I currently think you'd want to put into a OC role for the first time. And I think we've gone through so many offensive coordinators now. I don't know if there's any going to be looking to make a sideways move. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Whoever comes over.
You've got to look at it though. It's got to be the most desirable job that's come up in a long, long time. You've got an MVP level quarterback. You've got Hall of Fame running back. You've got all those pieces there that can be managed and taken a thing. If you're a young OC and you think I can go in there and basically Lamar can get me a contract somewhere else, that's it. The job I wouldn't want is our DC, but
there's definitely worse teams, isn't there? I mean, it's an organization with a winning culture that prizes stability, that has a franchise quarterback, that has good franchise pieces around him. You could end up being an ex head coach of the Browns, so that could be your opportunity. So if you've got a chance to be head coach of Baltimore, like, you are running that in, aren't you?
Yeah. Just I'm going to put it out there. Ridiculously early predictions. Where did the Ravens finish next year in the AFC North?
10-7.
Where did he finish? No, thank you very much, teacher. Did you listen in class, please, Oliver?
10-7 probably takes the North, to be fair. So I think we take the North.
That's what I said.
The Bengals are committing themselves to being a dumpster fire for another year by keeping Zach Taylor. The Browns are browsing it up, and
the Steelers will just go 9-8 again.
The Steelers will end up going 9-8. So I back us to get 10 or 11 wins next season. Again,
I think we scrape the North and go on a playoff run, and then the year after, if we've actually done it properly, we'll end up going 13-4, 14-3, something like that.
Fair enough.
Sorry, Richard, what do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Get off your phone.
Yeah,
it's got to be something, Rich.
You know what? It's going to be spicy.
Oh, God.
Spicy pineapple.
I think the Bengals will have a year where they get it all together and
Richard, you've been drinking again. Put the whiskey down. It's a bloody Tuesday.
He's back in school, isn't he? He's back,
It's a Tuesday.
Don't
Mike McCarthy. Oh God, David, where have you got? David, don't bring that Mike McCarthy voodoo into our lives. I don't think we need a Mike McCarthy.
At least he said. At least he said no Stefanski or Mike McCarthy. Look, David, I'd have Stefanski as an OC. I wouldn't touch him as a head coach at all. But I think he's going to get a head coach job elsewhere in the league. I think he'll be snapped up pretty quickly. Look, guys, thank you very much. Bit of bonus content coming later on tonight. I've got Kevin Osterreicher on from Locked On Ravens. Do a little short interview with him. See if I can find out exactly what went down in Charm City since the Steelers game and get his view on things, and see if we can find out exactly what's going to go on over the next few weeks. We've been live on YouTube and X. If you've been watching on either of them, pop over onto the other one. Drop us a follow or a subscribe. Everybody in the chat, Josh, Roller, Fucko, Chris coming in from Brazil. Who else has been in tonight? David, Shane.
Nosvida. Shane.
Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a real Southwest vibe tonight.
Independent. After an independence vote, the ref. It's good to have them in. So yeah, thank you very much. Look, it's always good talking with you guys about the Ravens.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
I don't know what we're going to do for the rest of the. I mean, apart from Nathan when he comes out with shit takes, he's like Derek Henry's never going to fumble the ball. You know what I mean?
He would
that's
not have
something that-
fumbled the ball in that situation. I maintain.
Zay Flowers wouldn't have fumbled the ball in that situation 2 years ago. Fucking,
Mark Andrews wouldn't fumble the ball in that situation a year ago.
Do you know what I mean? It's the pressure makes diamonds, and unfortunately, we've got fucking tires. Yeah, I don't know what we'll get together. Plans. I know we've got loads of stuff planned for towards the end of the off season, and a lot of stuff we're working towards with the draft. It's going to be huge. We'll probably get together next week or the week after, and if there's been anything come about, we'll be able to discuss the playoffs. I think we're gonna. I think
that's a good way to end it. Who's winning the Super Bowl, Tom?
Do you know what? And this, I think they've kind of like the Ravens early on in the season. They were going through the ringer, but then they pulled it together. I think they've been phenomenal both sides of the ball. I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna go with Stroud and the Texans.
Ooh.
I think New England. I think New England will. They've had to beat everyone in front of them this year, and they have done so. Apart from a few games obviously that they've lost, but I just don't think they're mature enough yet to go that next step. I think they'll get found out. You've also got to look at the AFC's got to go through. Got to go through Denver. Do you really want to be going to Mile High and do what a lot of teams have failed to do in the past? It's tough, but yeah, I'll go with the Texans. I like the look of the Texans. I think they've been excellent this year.
Ollie.
Oliver.
Ollie.
Yellow.
Who's winning the
Super Bowl winner?
Super Bowl winner. I say Seahawks versus Chargers in the Super Bowl. Let's go. I think the Seahawks win it.
Seahawks. Nice. Rich?
I just hope everyone has a good time.
I just want to watch the halftime act.
Yes.
What's your favourite Bad Bunny song anyway, Rich?
I can go with New England. Actually, I just think they're rolling and they're hard to stop, and it would be the most annoying thing ever for New England to win another one. So that's what I think.
I don't think it'll be annoying for New England to win another one. I think it'll be annoying for the AFC if New England won another one. I think being a teacher, your grammar and punctuation there was incorrect.
You already know your spelling.
I missed that day of primary school. Never caught up.
Could be Steelers Panthers Super Bowl. There we go.
Can you imagine?
Bryce Young MVP. There is obviously there's numerous Super Bowl events going on. There will be invites sent out. I think Stacked are wanting us to get down to an event that they're doing, so we look forward to that. Look, all that is left to say is John Harbaugh's gone. We're going into a new era. We've enjoyed, our journey from week 6, 7 this year when we started putting content out there. Everyone who's jumped on, supported us, and showed us some love. Thank you very much. Everybody who showed us some hate, gave us the negative comments. There hasn't been many of them who's given us constructive feedback. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of it. All of it. Look, we've been Ravens across the pond. I've been Thomas. They've been the Three Musketeers from the Wales, Southwest, whatever the group they're in now. Ollie, Dickie, and the guy who doesn't think Derek Henry would fumble the ball in that situation, Nathan. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Ravens Across the Pond. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.